My wife cheated with her boss, and now she's claiming I stole $250, $0 from our joint account to fund her affair. Plus, she's threatening to take everything, including our house, after the divorce. I never saw it coming. One day, everything was normal, well, as normal as it could be after 10 years of marriage. But then, out of nowhere, my world flipped upside down in a way I couldn't have imagined. The thing is, I caught my wife, Lisa, cheating on me. Not just a little flirtation, but full-blown affair with her boss, Mark. It was so sudden, so brutal, I still wake up some nights thinking about it. The betrayal hit me harder than I thought possible, especially because I thought we had a stable life. I mean, we had our problems, sure, but I never suspected her of anything like this. The signs weren't obvious at first. Lisa had been a little distant lately, not as affectionate as she used to be, but I chalked it up to stress at work or just the routine of daily life. She'd come home late sometimes, excuse herself with canned stories about meetings or client dinners. She'd hide her phone more. And I noticed her deleting messages, but I figured she just wanted privacy. That was normal, right? Or so I told myself. Then I started noticing small things, her phone ringing at odd hours, her being more secretive about her emails, and her getting defensive when I asked about her whereabouts. I didn't think much of it until I accidentally stumbled upon a text message thread on her phone. I was helping her with something on her iPad, and I saw a message from Mark. It was explicit, filled with flirtatious comments, and there were references to meeting up. My stomach dropped. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I remember sitting there, frozen, staring at the screen. I couldn't believe what I was reading. My wife, Lisa, was cheating on me with her boss. That wasn't just some fling. This was an affair, probably going on for months, judging by the messages. I felt a mix of anger, betrayal, and disbelief. I wanted to confront her immediately, but I knew I had to be careful. I needed proof, something concrete. I started digging around her phone and computer looking for more evidence. The next day, I followed her to her office. She said she had a meeting, but I saw her leave early and head straight to a hotel. She was with Mark. I saw them through the window, her leaning into him, their bodies close. It was like watching someone else's life unfold. I felt my knees weaken. How could she do this? After all these years, after everything we built? It was like a punch to the face. I wanted to scream, to break something, but I kept my cool. That night I confronted her. I told her I knew about the affair. Her reaction was shocking. She scoffed, called me paranoid, accused me of spying on her. She said I was overthinking, that I was jealous and insecure. She called me crazy for thinking she'd cheat on her own husband. She lied so effortlessly, like she was convincing herself as much as me. She insisted she loved me, that Mark was just a fling, that it didn't mean anything. But I saw through her bullshit. She was lying, and I knew it. The betrayal cut deep. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. My trust shattered, my sense of security gone. I was furious, hurt, and confused all at once. I wanted to believe her, wanted to fix things, but deep down I knew this was bigger than just a mistake. It was a betrayal of everything we stood for. I didn't sleep that night, replaying everything in my mind, trying to find a way forward. But I knew one thing: this wasn't going to end with just an apology or a few tears. Something had to change, and I was already starting to plan what that was going to be. After that night, everything felt different. The house was colder, the silence heavier. I couldn't focus at work, and even my friends noticed I was off. I kept going over the evidence in my head, trying to find some way to fix it, some way to turn back time. But the truth was, I was angry, so angry I could barely breathe. The woman I loved, the woman I trusted with everything, had been lying to my face for months. And not just lying, she had been sneaking around, cheating on me with her boss, Mark, who was supposed to be a professional, a mentor. Instead, he became her secret lover. I started noticing more signs. Her phone kept ringing late at night, and she'd rush to hide it. She'd get defensive if I asked who she was texting or calling. One day, I found a hotel receipt in her purse, paid in cash, no doubt to avoid leaving a paper trail. She told me it was for a client, some business trip she'd forgotten to tell me about. I wanted to believe her, but I knew better. She was lying again, just like she had been from the start. I decided I needed to confront her again, but this time I wanted to do it with some leverage. I started digging into her bank accounts, her emails, anything that could give me an edge. That's when I found it, something I hadn't expected. Over the past 6 months, she'd been funneling money into an account I didn't recognize. Not just small amounts either, tens of thousands here and there. I traced the transactions back to her. She had been secretly saving money, probably to prepare for something. I felt a cold sweat break out. Was she planning to leave? Was she trying to get away with something? One afternoon, I finally got a hold of her email account. I hacked. Yeah, I know, not proud, but desperation makes you do crazy things. I found emails between her and Mark confirming the affair. But what shook me even more was an email she sent to herself, titled Escape Plan, detailing how she would take everything, our house, the savings, the retirement fund, and leave me with nothing. She was serious. She was planning her future without me. And I realized she didn't just cheat on me. She was trying to destroy everything we had built. That was the turning point. I knew I had to act. I couldn't let her take everything. I couldn't let her get away with this. I needed a plan, something calculated, something that would hit her where it hurt. I spent the next few days gathering all the evidence I could, making copies of her bank transactions, saving her emails, recording her calls. I wanted to be prepared for whatever came next. The more I uncovered, the more I felt a burning need for revenge. Not in a violent way, but in a way that would make her regret every lie, every betrayal. She thought she was clever, sneaking around, hiding her money, planning her escape. But I was going to turn the tables. I was going to make her pay for what she did, and I knew exactly how to do it. I just had to wait for the right moment, wait until she let her guard down and then strike. That's when I decided I would fight for everything she was trying to steal from me. Because if she thought I'd roll over and accept this, she had another thing coming. The days that followed were a blur of planning and trying to keep my composure. I felt like I was walking on glass. Every move, every word I said had to be calculated. Lisa, of course, continued her bitchy attitude, throwing fits and accusing me of being paranoid. She'd scream that I was a terrible husband, that I was just jealous of her success, that I was imagining things. She called me controlling, insecure, and worse, claiming I was making her miserable. But I knew the truth. She was the miserable one, hiding her lies behind a mask of innocence. She kept up her act, pretending nothing was wrong, but I knew better. I saw her sneaking into her closet, hiding her phone and packing a few bags. She was getting ready to run, to start some new life with Mark, probably thinking she could get away with it. I couldn't let that happen. I had to be smart about this. I started to think about my options, what leverage I had, and how to turn her plans against her. One night she stayed out late again, claiming she was at a work dinner. I followed her, this time not just to see her but to catch her in the act if I could. I parked my car a few blocks away and watched her walk into that hotel again. I waited until everyone else had gone, then slipped in through a side door I had found earlier. I needed to see her face to face to make her realize I wasn't going to be played anymore. When I entered her room, I saw her lying on the bed, texting furiously. She looked up when I walked in and her face twisted into a sneer. "What are you doing here?" she snapped. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I pulled out my phone and played her own emails, her escape plan, right there for her to see. Her eyes widened in shock, and for a moment she looked genuinely caught off guard. Then she started to panic. "You little bastard," she spat, trying to grab the phone away, but I held it tight. "You've been planning to leave me, haven't you? Taking the money, the house, everything we worked for," I said, voice steady but full of rage. "And now you're trying to run, thinking you can get away with it." She tried to deny it, of course, but I had enough evidence to bury her. I told her I wasn't going to let her destroy me, not without a fight. That night I made a decision. I couldn't let her leave with everything, her affair, her lies, the money she'd stolen. I knew I had to act fast. The next morning I went straight to my lawyer and told him everything. I wanted to freeze our joint accounts, get a restraining order, and start the process of divorce. I wasn't just doing this out of revenge. I needed to protect what was mine, what she was trying to steal from me. She had underestimated me, thinking I'd just roll over, but I was done being the victim. Meanwhile, Lisa kept up her bitchy attitude, trying to guilt-trip me, claiming I was ruining her life. She told me I was a terrible husband, that I never supported her dreams, that she deserved better. But I didn't buy it. She was the one who lied, who cheated, who planned her escape. And now she was trying to turn the tables, accusing me of being the bad guy. That only fueled my resolve. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. It was time to fight for what was rightfully mine. I had all the evidence, all the leverage, and I was ready to take her down. The confrontation with Lisa that morning was something else. She knew I wasn't playing games anymore. I handed her the legal papers, told her I'd gone to the lawyer, and explained I was freezing our joint accounts and filing for divorce. Her face twisted into a mixture of rage and disbelief. She started screaming, calling me every name in the book, saying I was ruining her life, that I was a jealous, controlling husband who couldn't handle her success. She even threw a glass at the wall, missed, but the message was clear. She was losing control. She kept insisting that I was overreacting, that I was crazy for accusing her of cheating. She told me Mark was just a boss, a mentor, nothing more, but I knew better. I had the proof and I wasn't going to let her deny it anymore. I told her I had everything documented, the emails, the bank transactions, the hotel receipts. She tried to deny everything, but it was useless. I was done listening to her lies. What hit me hardest was her attempt to guilt-trip me, saying I'd ruined her career and that she'd never forgive me if I took everything away. She said I was a terrible husband, that she deserved better, that she'd find a way to get her money and her freedom. She kept crying, trying to manipulate me into backing down, but I wasn't falling for it. I was done being the victim. I had to protect what was mine, my house, my savings, my dignity. Over the next few days, I started executing my plan. I contacted my lawyer and the bank to freeze all our accounts, and I hired a private investigator to keep tabs on her. I wanted to see if she was making any moves to leave or transfer money. Meanwhile, I stayed calm on the surface, but inside I was seething. I knew she'd try to pull something, and I had to be ready. One afternoon, I received a call from the bank. She tried to withdraw a large sum of money, more than she was entitled to. I immediately took control, preventing her from draining the account further. That was the moment I knew I was winning this game. She was desperate and her facade was cracking. I could see her slipping into full-blown panic mode when she realized I was serious about fighting for everything. Her bitchy attitude turned into outright rage. She accused me of ruining her life, of being a controlling asshole, of trying to punish her for her mistakes. She said she'd take me to court, that she'd fight for every penny, and even threatened to take the house, the savings, everything we had. I just looked at her and said, "Go ahead. You're not taking anything from me without a fight." I was done playing nice. I knew she was planning to lie, cheat, and manipulate her way out of this. But I wasn't going to let her. Not anymore. That night I stayed up late, organizing everything, copying her emails, printing transaction records, making sure I had a solid case. I knew she'd try to spin this in her favor, but I had the evidence. I was ready to go to court if I had to. I wasn't about to let her walk away with my house, my money, or my dignity. I'd been betrayed in the worst way, but now I was fighting back. And I knew I'd win, because I had the truth, and I was determined to make her pay for the pain she caused. The days that followed felt like a war of attrition. Lisa was losing her cool more and more, which was exactly what I wanted. Her bitchy, entitled attitude turned into full-blown paranoia. She started accusing me of spying on her, of trying to control her, of ruining her life because I dared to stand up for myself. She'd threatened to take everything, our house, our savings, our future, and I could see her desperation growing. But I didn't flinch. I had everything documented, all her lies, her plans to run away with Mark, the secret accounts she'd opened, the money she'd been squirreling away. One night I came home early from work, expecting her to be out or hiding somewhere. Instead, I found her sitting on the couch, her face flushed, eyes darting around like a cornered animal. She knew I was on to her and she was panicking. That's when I decided it was time to confront her directly, face to face, with everything on the table. I sat down across from her, looked her straight in the eyes, and told her I knew everything. I told her I had the evidence, her emails, the bank transactions, the hotel receipts, the recordings, and that I wasn't going to let her manipulate or threaten me anymore. Her face twisted into a sneer, but I could see the cracks in her facade. She tried to deny everything, claiming I was paranoid, that I was making things up. But I had her cornered. Then she exploded. She called me a jealous, insecure, controlling bastard, said I was ruining her life because I couldn't handle her success. She accused me of being a terrible husband and said I was just jealous because Mark was better in bed than I ever was. She spat out that she'd leave me, take the house, and start fresh with Mark, leaving me with nothing. But I wasn't falling for her lies anymore. I told her she could try, but I'd fight her for everything. I was done with her bullshit. The next step was clear. I went back to my lawyer and told him to prepare for a divorce. I also told him to file for an emergency restraining order. If she tried to take off or transfer money again, I wanted her blocked. Meanwhile, I kept the pressure on, monitoring her every move. I even installed a security camera in the house, just in case she tried to sneak out or destroy evidence. She kept up her act, trying to guilt me, calling me a terrible husband, saying I was forcing her into a corner. She claimed she loved me, that her affair was just a mistake, that she'd stop if I just forgave her. But I knew better. I saw her for what she was, a manipulative, entitled bitch who thought she could get away with everything. I refused to be her punching bag anymore. I was done playing nice. I was ready to fight for my dignity, my house, everything I'd worked for. Honestly, I felt a strange mix of relief and anger. Relief because I finally knew the truth and was taking control. Anger because it had come to this, because she had betrayed everything we built, just for some cheap sex and a quick escape. But I also knew I'd come out of this stronger. I wasn't just going to roll over and let her take my life. I was going to make sure she paid for what she did, and I was going to rebuild, better, smarter, and more cautious than ever before. The court date came faster than I expected, but I was ready. Everything was laid out: proof of her affair, the secret accounts, the hotel receipts, her plans to leave with Mark. My lawyer did his job, and I sat there, feeling a strange mixture of exhaustion and satisfaction. Lisa's bitchy attitude had faded into something more desperate. Her once confident facade now cracked, revealing a woman drowning in her own lies. She tried to deny everything, but the evidence was airtight. The judge didn't buy her sob story, and in the end, she was any claim to the house or our joint savings. When the judge ordered her to stay away from the house and froze her access to our accounts, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I had won the fight, not just for the money or the house, but for my dignity. Lisa's threats to take everything, her accusations that I was a thief, that I'd stolen the money, faded into the background. I knew she was trying to manipulate the situation, but I was no longer listening. I had everything I needed to rebuild my life. The aftermath was messy but necessary. I moved out of the house, found a small apartment, and started over. Lisa, of course, refused to accept defeat. She continued to spin stories, claiming I was the villain, that I'd somehow betrayed her. But I stayed calm. I knew the truth, and I knew her game. She tried to turn friends and family against me, but I kept my distance from her antics. I had cut all ties with her financial and emotional manipulation. Looking back, I realized this entire ordeal changed me. I learned to be more cautious about who I trust, about the signs I ignored, about the importance of standing up for myself. I also learned that betrayal can come from those closest to you, and that sometimes you have to fight dirty to protect what's yours. I don't regret what I did. I only regret not seeing the signs sooner. Now I'm rebuilding my life. I've started saving again, focusing on myself. I've learned that revenge isn't about hurting her. It's about reclaiming your peace, your dignity, and your future. If there's one thing I want others to take from this, it's that no matter how deep the betrayal runs, you have the power to fight back. Trust your instincts, gather your evidence, and don't be afraid to stand up for yourself. Because in the end, your life is yours to control, and no one can take that away unless you let them.